still in uniform, still a threat. Okay, so we have a stop. Why do I have a stop? This is what I wanted to do. Okay, so I believe I recaptured it. Got to keep an eye on things. But you go to you'll find this video and you'll ask yourself, well, what is the reason for a police officer to draw his weapon when the suspect is semi-conscious, handcuffed, lying on the floor with his pants around his knees? And what the police officer ended up explaining, or at least what we're getting in the news, is that the the um the suspect no the prison guard that was helping him uh knocked his gun with his left hand. Now I saw the video, and you can what ultimately I think ended up happening is that you have cameras from different locations, and the individual who asked for the Freedom of Information Act for those videos, police officer is a public figure, the prison guard's a public figure. The incident happened on the public right of way, the county jail, what is known as the county jail in El Paso, Texas. Uh, and if you look at a certain angle, you can sell it. You can sell the idea that the prison guard knocked the police officer's handgun with his hand and caused the firearm to discharge. If you don't know anything about firearms, that's even more, you're more likely to believe that. Firearms are not easy to discharge, by the way. Everybody who works with firearms will tell you how hard it is to pull back the hammer, you know. And what you're ultimately seeing, if you're a discerning person, and you got to ask yourself the question, if the suspect is handcuffed, hands behind his back, laying on the floor, semi-conscious, pants around his knees, what's the need for the police officer to draw his weapon? What is also being reported is that this individual had been tased and peppered and rather aggressive. Now, again, if you hear that, the next automatic question that should come to your mind is, well, why are only two people handling him? If the individual is that difficult, why aren't more people handling him? So, and like I said, from my own personal experience, I've seen the worst that police officers have to offer. But let's deal with the last incident, which is being described in this manner, that the young people, some teenagers nowadays, is a term used to describe a lot of people. Okay, that's fine. So you had anything, from 13 to 19. Individuals who didn't live inside this secured neighborhood, who decided to jump the fence and have their pool party, even though they have no rights to the swimming pool. Okay, granted, trespassing is a crime. Not going to belittle that. However, what I saw, and again, I saw a 36-second video, but it did trouble me because the video that I saw, how it begins, is you see the police officer in question. You see him running and then taking a flying leap, a roll. He gets back up, jumps back up on his feet, and takes off running. And the rest of the video is him yelling, cursing, just acting completely irrational. And people are questioning him. Let's deal with this first issue. Do you have the right to question a police officer? Yes, you do. You have the right to ask a police officer what crime is he or her investigating. A lot of people, well, a lot of people, I was going to say a lot of people are convinced that that police officers have full authority. They don't. A police officer has to observe you committing a crime. A police officer has to have a report of you committing a crime, or a person who fits your general description committing a crime. And if that doesn't happen, then the police officer can yell 101 instructions. If he is not, if he or she is not in the proper investigation of a crime, they literally should be leaving people in the members of society alone. And this is a very important point because too many people think that a police officer walks up to you, starts demanding something from you, that you're obligated to cooperate. You're not. Uh, if you have committed a crime, and let's be realistic, an individual who has committed a crime is going to be uncooperative. But the distinguishing factor is that the police officer observed a suspicious behavior, observed a crime, or has a report of suspicious behavior or a crime. Then the individual has, I always remember probable cause, reasonable suspicion. Okay? And too many police officers are forgetting about reasonable suspicion and probable cause. And most citizens don't even know what reasonable suspicion and probable cause is. And I'm not going to pull up a website and, excuse me, and give a definition. You can go on your own. The point being is the police officer in this case is acting irrational. I have a degree in psychology, and I don't need my degree in psychology to observe the behavior of the police officer, the last one in, I'm going to say McKinney, Texas, I may be wrong, who ultimately resigned. But he is yelling bad words at people. To me, that should be a crime. Um, you're not there to be insulted by government employees, even if you have committed a crime. When I started looking at this, that was my point of reference. You know, let's go ahead and say that the police officer had a legitimate right to investigate a crime and to take suspects into custody. Let's go ahead and say that. The manner in which he was doing it, one, is not professional, and two, is not the behavior of a mentally healthy individual. There was a young lady, and she was giving it verbally to the cops, and there was a lot of people telling this police officer off as they're observing his behavior. And I don't know what it is about police officers when they're being insulted that they get, you know, huffy and puffy. They get, defensive. And they think that they need to start competing with the person who is telling them off. If you don't want to get told off, don't act like a punk. Now, of course, serious issues are a great discussion of lack of respect for police, that there's a war on cops, and society no longer respects the contribution that law enforcement officers make to society, and no longer considers police officers human beings. To that, I would say no one has to like you. I did security for 10 years. I knew people didn't like me. When I showed up to stop a boyfriend from using his girlfriend as a punching bag, I'm pretty sure the boyfriend didn't like me. And into the I shouldn't laugh, it's a serious issue, but into the operations separating these people, the girlfriend didn't like me. Women don't want to be used as punching bags, but they also don't want security or law enforcement to harass their boyfriends. What can you do? People don't like you if you work security. People don't like you if you work in law enforcement. It shouldn't even be an issue to police. What should be an issue to police is, where's the crime? Where's the suspect? I don't have much respect for criminals. Having said that, I don't believe criminals should lose their life on the street. There are some very serious people, we all know there are. They'll take our lives, they'll take anybody's life. I'm not saying that police officers shouldn't do their jobs, that they shouldn't be on guard. But when you when you see a police officer shoot a person in the back, when you see a police officer throw a smaller person, doesn't matter that it was a female, smaller person with its full force into a cell, and that individual falls against a concrete bench and breaks her jaw, something's wrong. when you see a police officer just whacking away with those extendable batons at a person lying on the floor, and anybody watching that video can see that both of his legs are broken, and he's walking away, he's whacking away at the guy, just yelling at him, turn over, turn over, turn over. There's no one under that circumstance is going to be able to turn over. When you see stuff like that, you understand that there are problems in America. Let me tell you something. There are serious problems in El Paso, Texas, with the police department, with law enforcement in general. It doesn't matter whether it's customs, border patrol, um, county sheriff, city municipal cops, even the FBI, even the state cops. And therein lies the problem. When people don't see it, they don't think it's a problem. If all you know is what the news media tells you, then you don't think it's a problem. To this day, I'm surprised when someone I know comes and tells me about an incident they had with a recent incident they had with law enforcement, and it's everything I've ever told them. And they're looking at me like, yeah, but you don't understand. And I'm like, come on. I've given you lectures on the evil and horrible behavior of police officers in El Paso, Texas. And finally, because you have had one incident, all of a sudden it's legitimate. It's a very serious issue. It's not an issue that is solved by police officers copying an attitude. That's not mature. We need adults. We need professionals. We need people who are trained to do their jobs and who respect human life. I may not have a great opinion of criminals, but they're human beings. And as I used as I used to tell people a long time ago, the issue isn't that they're violating the rights of criminals. That's a serious issue. But the issue is that when they give themselves permission to violate anybody's rights, they'll violate your rights. And again, criminals are not going to cooperate with police officers. We're not all criminals. The majority of us, if we get pulled over for a citation, that's it. We get our citation, we go home. That's the way it should work. Law enforcement shouldn't automatically assume that we're criminals, that we're drug dealers. That's where they put everybody. You're either a person intoxicated, or you're a person that's doing something with illegal narcotics. You have rights. You have rights. You have protections. You should be able to quote the United States Constitution by memory. Um, I do watch a lot of documentaries. Whether it's Russia, Germany, China, Cuba, El Salvador, Colombia, Uganda, the instruments that governments were using to slaughter the people of those regions were the military and law enforcement. When I see these issues, it reminds me of who's that Ugandan guy? Idi Amin. Reminds me of Stalin. Reminds me of Hitler. Fidel Castro. If you look at Mexican society, I was just thinking yesterday, people talking about how safe Mexico has become. Mexico hasn't become safe. Mexico's never been safe. In Mexico, military officers will stop buses, commercial buses, passenger commercial buses, take a little money, take a little property, and now and then they'll take people, human beings, mostly young girls, military officers. I hope we never hear in the United States of America that a Greyhound bus got stopped and the passengers were robbed and their daughters were taken away. And that's my concern. When we see this stuff, when we see police officers behaving in this manner, that's my concern. That it becomes institutional, that it becomes government sponsored, and before you know it, you're living in a murderous land, a land of no laws, and where government is sending the military and the police to murder people they don't like. Somebody sent me a petition Um, Apparently, there's an African nation where the leader has said that if he becomes aware of a person's homosexuality, he'll have that person killed. I may not agree with it. It's totally against my personal beliefs, but I don't believe that the person should lose his or her life. And definitely no leader of a nation, under no circumstances should a leader of a nation be saying, if this person does something I don't like, I'm going to have him killed. So the big concern is that can very easily escalate into something that threatens all of us. I know we say we live in the United States of America and there's certain things that will not happen. Um, uh, Excuse me, I got to do something. I'm doing it as fast as I can. I think I'm doing it as fast as I can. When you do this, you got to make sure that there's no dead air. Okay, got it done. So, uh, so that's the first issue that was on my mind. Ann Coulter, look her up if you don't know who she is. Has had a little, you know, little notoriety, little, publicity. She wrote a book where she was harshly critical of the people of Mexico and, the people who come, and all people who come into this country legally. When you live in El Paso, Texas, when you live in a city like El Paso, Texas, a border city, you come to understand the motives, emotions, thoughts, philosophies, and behaviors of the people of Mexico. It doesn't bring me any pleasure to have to say that the majority, 90-95% of the people of Mexico, have very poor morality and very poor ethics. The best way that I can um, make the argument, there's a lot of ways that I can make the argument, but one of the ways that I can make the argument is in my business, I encountered an individual from Mexico who identified himself as a Christian minister in a church in Mexico. Okay, that's not the problem. As we were talking, the conversation eventually went to the, you know, behaviors of people of Mexico and their conditions and status and whatever it is you want to call it. And of course, I'm very disciplined in my politics and my ideas and my philosophy, and I want to apologize for it. I'm not out to harm anybody. I happen to believe that the only way that we can fix anything is by truly understanding the problem. So I'm talking to this person, and I ask him, well, don't you think part of the problem is that the people of Mexico don't pay their taxes, they bribe their government officials, they purchase their driver's license in the black market, they purchase the license plates for the vehicles in the black market, they steal their neighbors' water rights, they steal their neighbors' electricity, they steal their neighbors' cable. They come into the United States of America illegally. As soon as they get into the United States of America, they find the welfare or any government agency that can help them. And before you know it, they're on welfare, they're on food stamps, they're in government housing, they're in public schools, and they're literally causing a serious problem. And the response of this individual who identified himself as a Christian minister was the automatic response that anybody always gives. And that response is that, well, they do that because government is corrupt. Okay. In Mexico, government is corrupt. The corruption of government in Mexico involves everybody. It involves the president. It involves the leaders of the military. It involves the military. It involves federal police agents. It involves state police. It involves municipal police. It involves the citizen. The citizen doesn't pay taxes. The citizen bribes the tax collector. That's Mexico. Um, I live in El Paso, Texas, and I can tell you that the level of corruption that exists in Mexico exists in El Paso, Texas. And the majority of the population in El Paso, Texas is 85% Mexican. Example, I was sitting in my taxi one day, and don't laugh at the fact that I'm a taxi driver. That's what you do in El Paso, Texas when you have a bachelor's in psychology. You either find a way to survive or you die. So I'm sitting in my taxi, and one of the other taxi drivers comes and knocks on my window and says, "We're taking up a collection. $5. $5 isn't much. Kind of curious what the collection is for." I said, "Well, what for?" He says, "So the people from the city government who paint the lines on the roads will paint the lines of the taxi stand so people will be able to see that it's a taxi stand and not park there." Taxi drivers in El Paso, Texas are taking up a collection to give to the people who are supposed to do their job and paint the curb yellow and paint the yellow line around the taxi stand. I can see what's wrong with that. I know they cannot see what's wrong with that because they come from Mexico. The city employees whose job it is, regardless of whether somebody gives them a tip or a bribe, and it's a bribe, can't do know what's wrong with it, but hey, why not? Taxi drivers are required to have their vehicles inspected every 4 months at a police garage. I have taxi business is private industry. I'm self-employed. America's a country about freedom. We believe in free enterprise, free market. No, we don't. America's not about freedom. Freedom is what's on the paper. Corruption is what's in actual practice. So we have to go take our cars to this police garage to get it inspected to make sure it meets the standards of the regulations of the government, the city government. And I'm doing the company owner a favor. And on several occasions, the manager would tell me, "When you're done, make sure to give me a tip." Down now, you know how long it takes. Waiting here to see if we have it covered. Let me see, let me see, let me see, let me see. Hanging out in case you're watching this. Here we go. Man. So, am I back or am I not back? Maybe I'm back. Okay. So, as I was saying, before I was so rudely interrupted, the manager of the taxi company that I am partnered with, I'm not their employee, I give them money, they lend me the car, I go wherever I want, and I make money, is telling me to give a little tip, money, to the city employee who's going to inspect the taxi. I see a lot wrong with that. It was along the lines of corruption. Never done it, by the way. Have never put a cent in the palm of those city employees. The whole idea is offensive to me. But there you are. Corruption at its best. And yes, the people who work in that police garage, the mechanics, come from Mexico, come from the Mexican experience. And I could, if you could write a book on examples on corruption here in El Paso, Texas. I didn't, you hear so much. You hear so much, and sometimes you're just cynical and you tell yourself, there's no way anything can be that corrupt. And then you involve yourself in a certain, environment, and you're disgusted. You're disgusted by the level that people will allow themselves to be corrupt. To me, this is how I see it. The corruption begins with city government interfering in private industry. America is about freedom. When you start interfering in private industry, you're violating individual rights. It's communism. That's the first level of corruption. It starts with the mayor, the city representatives, and the city manager. The next level of corruption is the bureaucrats, the government employees that they put to quote unquote be in charge of taxi drivers in El Paso, Texas. And even though it's private industry, we're all self-employed. Police officers behave like they're our managers. I no longer want to hear anything from an El Paso police officer. I will tell them off, and I'll use bad words to tell them off. I'm not proud of myself, but they're just so stupid. It's hard to deal with people that stupid. The next level of corruption is the citizen. The citizen who believes that they have a right for a service, and they have no understanding of well, they understand private industry. It's just not convenient. It's like I was telling a person who didn't much care what I was telling them about, but it's the truth. The people of Mexico have no interest in correcting the problem because right now it is convenient for them for the problem to exist. The problem being corruption in Mexico. If you can buy your driver's license in the black market, that's easy. That's convenient. That's very little work for you. If you can buy the license plates of your vehicle in the black market, that's easy. Let me explain the black market I'm talking about. Government employees in Mexico, some of them, will lend themselves to people who will bribe them. So you will find people in whatever office gives driver's license to citizens in Mexico who will give you a driver's license. You don't got to take the test. You don't got to pay for the test. You just got to, put a little money in the guy's pocket. And at the end of the day, he'll bring your driver's license. Same thing for your license plates. At the end of the day, they'll bring your license plates. Excuse me, my sneeze. At the end of the day, the person who collects property taxes will bring you a receipt saying you pay your taxes. You didn't pay your taxes. You didn't pay for your driver's license. You didn't pay for your license plates. At least you didn't pay the price that it would have cost you if you have purchased it legally. And what that ultimately means is that the government doesn't have the money to run effectively. Police officers in Mexico take bribes on a regular basis. You don't pay the citation. You give the officer $10. I hear it every day, every weekend from the customers that I have, people that I've, have used the service for a while. I know them, they know me, I'm friendly to them, they're friendly to me. I keep hearing it from them that when they leave whatever establishment they went to dance and drink and, flirt with the women, when they come out, there's a line of police officers waiting for the customers of these bars because they're all in the street, just waiting for them. They're not waiting to do their job because they're concerned about people who are going to go home, who are going to drive home drunk. Yes, I am smiling, sort of smirking, laughing at this. They're waiting for the money. They're waiting to call over the citizen. Citizen, come here, please. Let me see what's going on. Where's your wallet? Okay. Thank you. Here's your wallet. That's what they're waiting for. That's corruption. And it involves everybody. It involves the politicians who know the practice of behavior is going on. It involves the citizen who, because it is convenient for them to purchase their stuff on the black market, doesn't really do much about fixing the problem. So the level of corruption goes from president to citizen. Who does the United States of America get from Mexico? I was listening to the radio today, and they were talking about how a lot of these people coming into the country are working for drug cartels. Yes, you get the worst of the worst, the murderers, the rapists, the thugs, the people who are being sent here by the drug cartels in Mexico for the purpose of establishing business here. It has become difficult for them to get their product into America. Therefore, they're in the jungles of America growing marijuana. Some of you know this, a lot of you do not know this. So you get the worst of the worst. But let's leave out the criminal. The average individual from Mexico is a person who has very little education, stop going to school maybe around second year. It's a person who has no employable skills outside of what they can do with their hands and their legs. Not very good with the brain. Um, the economic dynamic changed in Mexico, where a lot of farmers, you know, went bankrupt, and that was their livelihood. And that's what you're getting. People who had farms or people who could live off the land, and because of the dynamic in Mexico, the economic dynamic changing, there's no longer a place for them as far as they are concerned because they're not willing to adapt. Why would they? If yesterday you were a farmer and today you cannot be a farmer, most people would say, well, I have to do something else. So they would go to school, learn a trade, maybe become a doctor. Not the Mexican. The Mexican has been enticed by what they hear in the Mexican news, and if you're living in a border town, you're also aware of the American news. So they can't live the life they want to live. And here you got a country that pays $7 an hour. For a Mexican, 7.25 an hour is twice the daily rate in Mexico. So in a day, you're going to earn $3 to $4. In America, you're going to earn 7.25 an hour. And you got your friends pushing you, and you're seeing all these commercials, all these news reports. You're reading in the newspaper how much the Catholic Church will help you, how much this government program will help you, how you can send your kids to school for free. There was this is just profound on my part. I was hearing this argument about the land that was supposedly stolen from Mexico. And right now on the History Channel, there's this program called Texas Rising, and it begins after the Alamo. And some of it is historical, and a lot of it is drama. But I was thinking to myself, you know, and I was having this discussion with this person, and I told him, listen, you don't want the land back. You want the public schools that are on that land for your children to get a free education. You don't want the land back. You want the county hospitals that are on that land that you believe will give you free health care. You don't want the land back. You want those Walmarts and those construction companies that are on that land so that will give you a $10 to $15 an hour employment. Because somewhere down the line, somebody convinced you that you're worth it and that it is your privilege. Everybody else knows that you're wrong. Whether you're talking about a human law, whether you're talking about greater than human law, you're wrong. Violating the country's borders is wrong. If you live in a border town, on the Mexican side, and you're bringing your children to school on the American side, you're wrong. If you're coming over to the county hospital, the government hospital here in El Paso, Texas, from Mexico to get free health care, knowing you have no intention of paying, you're wrong. If you're violating the borders of this country and finding yourself as fast as you can under welfare, food stamps, government housing, name it, name the government program, you're wrong, and you know you're wrong. There is no human justification for it. There is no spiritual justification for it. But people have told you that you're right. And that leads me to my other central issue. First issue was discussing police officers, their bad behaviors, their inability to grow up, lack of respect for human rights, lack of respect for United States constitutional rights. The second issue is the issue of immigration, and of course, and corruption. And this is issue number 3. We're seeing the highest level of corruption in American government ever. course, when you understand liberal Democrats, you know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to pander to the worst because that's where they get their votes. Abortion is very bad. The murder of the unborn is very bad. It's destroying human life, destroying life itself. You know, these liberals go crazy about owls and fishes. The California drought has to do with these crazy liberals trying to protect animals. But if it's a human fetus, they really don't care. So Democrats go to the worst, like prisoners. The argument against letting prisoners vote again is because they can influence policies directly related to criminal behavior. They can vote to reduce the punishment of criminal behavior. See? So you can no longer trust them to do the right thing because being that they're criminals, they're going to vote for things that make it better for criminals. On the Republican side, Mr. Ronald Reagan supported legal immigration reform. I was personally disappointed. I was a very young person. I was personally disappointed. We fought George W. Bush tooth and nail. And by we, I mean someone as simple as me and great giants like Laura Ingraham and Rush Limbaugh and everybody in between, groups of people, Americans, just defiant, getting in the face of the government saying, heck no, this will not happen. We've been fighting this war since 2006. And we've got these Republicans so obsessed with the idea of making it happen. It's not stop spending. That doesn't appear to be their obsession, which is what's going to destroy the country. Forget ISIS. Forget the illegal immigrant. What's ultimately going to destroy America, ultimately going to destroy America, is the $20 trillion in debt. The answer to that $20 trillion in debt is the American citizen. I'm trying to figure something out here. I'm trying to multitask. So I'll just talk about it, and that way there's no dead air, which you're not supposed to have. Let's see here, yeah, I'm 37. Okay. So I got 45 more minutes. All right. Therefore, America is in danger, great danger, because the Congress can't seem to stop spending money. In 2014, the midterm elections, a lot of Republicans got elected, and the first thing they did when they got into office, more spending. And of course, trying to somehow find a way to help Obama with his illegal immigration reform scheme. I have not seen Obama as passionate about helping Americans as he is about helping Mexicans. I think he's forgotten which country he's the president of. And the Republicans in Congress have forgotten who they are supposed to serve. They're supposed to serve the American people. But all of this is the citizen. Police officers behave the way police officers behave because the citizens' lack of involvement in government. The few little things that I talked to you about corruption that involve government and government employees here in El Paso, Texas, exist because the people of El Paso are not paying attention. The only answer that there is for the people to stand up for what is right, not for what is politically correct. I've said it before, I don't want to see any child starve. Republicans, conservatives are not about letting children starve. We're not about letting people who need health care to save their lives. What your little president did with his health care is about denying you health care. They're going to score you. They're going to give you a grade, and they're going to say, this person really isn't all that necessary in society. Put him in the corner and give him some painkillers till he dies. That's you, Democrats. Republicans are all about people having money in their pocket, money in their bank, and buying the best health care they can buy. Democrats are about preaching the negative, not preaching principles of failure, They're all about drug addiction. They're all about teenage pregnancy. They're all about gang behavior, illegal immigration, abuse of welfare. That's all Democrats are about. uh, we conservatives want to see people get what they want, but we want to see them get what they want by earning it, not by government just handing it to them. We wouldn't have a need for welfare if there weren't so many liberal policies interfering with people's ability to formulate their own personal success. And the citizen's the answer. In one of those radio shows that I pretend not to listen to, they were talking about, secret societies and people with a lot of money, manipulation of social political environments that ultimately create negative consequences for the average person. But the reality is they really don't. And the reason that they don't is because, because their power comes from your money. I'm trying to turn this off here. See, think of that. There were these two states, and they wanted to give protection to people because of the religion, in case somebody came in and made a big point of them not giving them services because of their lifestyle. And big, powerful financial companies threatened the elected officials of those states with taking the companies out of there if these politicians supported this protection of religious rights. One of the fundamental protections in America is religious rights. The First Amendment of the Constitution is religious rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. But who made Walmart powerful? Who made PayPal powerful? Who made the NCAA powerful? It's not a corporation. It behaves like a corporation. The NCAA threatened those states and said, we will take our competitions out of your states. Who made them powerful? The people who purchase their tickets, their jackets, who send their children to their colleges, to universities, people who make purchases at Walmart, people who use PayPal. Those are the individuals who make these people powerful. Therefore, you're powerful. If you deny Walmart your money, Walmart can't threaten your elected officials. And we're all, it's troubling to see people so close to the point of psychosis because they believe that there's this big creature out there that's about to devour them. Okay, there's a big creature out there. If you don't feed it, it starves to death. A lot of these, NCAA gets a lot of government money. Walmart, you may not believe this, but Walmart is a private corporation, gets a lot of your tax dollars. It's the way the system is built. It's rigged that way. PayPal's the same thing. The government is just not a government. It's a consumer. It buys products. I bet you that the government buys a lot of supplies from Walmart. It's rigged that way. This is what they do. Again, if we force them to keep the government small, taxes small, and think about where we make our purchases, they're not that powerful. They really can't harm us. In this country, you can still purchase a rifle. You can still purchase a handgun. You can still talk to your neighbor. You can get organized. You can get unite. Yeah, you can unite. There have been people who have been thrown in jail with some of the strangest laws that, the fact that they exist on the American, legal code, it tells you where this country is going. I can be pulling out $9,500 every month I get investigated by the FBI, and if the FBI doesn't like what I say, they'll put me in jail. Peculiar laws that I mean, you can't pull your own money out of the bank. You can't pay your vendors with cash, and it's so extreme that uh, uh, an elderly lady who's always done business this way. She owned a bakery, has owned a bakery for a very long time, and has always paid her bills that way. Investigated and arrested. The power is in the hands of the citizen, but the citizen has to stand up and own that power. It's not hopeless. You're never going to find me saying that it's hopeless. On Monday, Glenn Beck of the Glenn Beck radio show just went off on everything that is wrong and everybody that is wrong. And, you know, here I am trying to inform people, trying to get people to wake up and pay attention and do what it needs to get done. And there's little Glenn Beck saying everything sucks, nothing works, why bother? The worst attitude that you can ever have anything to do with is the attitude of everything sucks, nothing works, why bother? I've had two arguments, I'm going to say this year, this year, and they've ended in the same way. The person is responding, that's never going to happen, and nothing will ever get done. With that attitude, you're 100% correct. With that attitude, you're 100% correct that nothing's ever going to get done. Absolutely. I wasted my time talking to them. But I believe that there are a lot of Americans, I see it, I hear it. A lot of Americans alive, paying attention, willing to stand up for this country. We're at war with the politicians. Yes, we're at war with the politicians. We're at war with the liberal, Democrat, agenda-driven news media. You know, we're at war with every special interest group that has got their palm out so the government will put money in it. But if we don't fight, it's over. We have no choice but to fight. If we do not fight, it is over. So we ultimately got to ask ourselves, the question is are we willing to punk out? Are we willing to be the reason that America falls? You know, I write, maybe now it's like an article 4 months, 5 months. But I'm seeing that people, come on, you got to wake up, man. You got to stop being the Jon Stewart audience. You got to stop being the Bill Maher audience. Principles of success are very easy, or of organization. Things have to be done in a certain way because that's how things get done. You cannot steal somebody else's hard-earned money. You can't be living off your neighbor. You're healthy, get a job, be part of the solution. 97 million people not working, and all of us who are working are feeding you. You should be ashamed of yourself. But you're not. You're not ashamed of yourself. This government gives you permission to do what you're doing. Modern America is about what's wrong is right and what's right is wrong. But I see, you know, people, good and decent people, standing up, getting ready to make a difference. What concerns me is that not much is going on. You know, it's time for action. It's time for a 100 million conservative member march to Washington to let these dirty, good-for-nothing politicians see us and hear us. Well, I think I covered it all for now. Okay, thank you for listening. Have a good day, and I'll catch you next time.